Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming on. Welcome to all of my replay viewers. Welcome to everyone who's joining us. Thanks for joining today. I know I'm coming on a little bit earlier than normal, so if this is your first time with me, my name is Keely. I'm the owner of LoveHipAdventure.com. I'm going to flip my camera around so I can talk with you guys better. Hello. How's everyone doing today? I know I'm coming on earlier than normal, but that's because I'm trying to change my scope schedule a little bit to fit so that I can catch Crystal at the Money Saving Mom Live. And I really love having time with her. Hey, Lori, thanks so much for coming on. Me and a couple of the scopers that I follow were oh, thank you. Someone says my hair is beautiful today. It feels a little frizzy to me. I think it's this weather change going on. For some reason here in the south, it's been pretty warm, but then it got like freezing last night and today, and like now it's hot again, and I'm told that winter storms are coming. I don't even know what's going on anymore, people. So anyway, I'm trying to work through, I'm in North Carolina, and not too far down into North Carolina, but yeah, somewhere closer in the south. I was born in Virginia, lived there all of my life, just moved all around Virginia for a while, and then we've lived here in North Carolina for about 5 years, so it's been different. Oh, and someone says they're in Florida, so I bet you're just loving this warm weather. I feel like we've had Florida weather, and I like summers, and I like winters. I don't like summer and winter in the same week, though. That's me. So glad some of you guys are coming on. I'm glad that this is working for you all, because I was concerned about changing my my scope schedule today, but like I said, I'm trying to work out with some of the other people that I follow on Scope, Stacy at Humorous Homemaking, and Crystal Payne from Money Saving Mom, and Mackenzie Monroe. She comes on, she's from Bold Turquoise, but I don't think I will ever get in her way because she's kind of earlier in the morning, so this is what we're going to try for now. Today I wanted to talk with you guys about what to do when sex feels like a chore. And I think that during different times, someone says they're on a homeschool break. Yay! Good timing. So I think that sex can feel like a chore. Like maybe just one time, maybe you kind of like feel like, oh, my spouse really needs me, I want to be with them. That's great. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Sometimes your spouse does want to have sex with you, and you're maybe not ready. It's the same thing as if your spouse was hungry, and you just weren't really that hungry right that minute, but you decided to eat together anyway because it's dinner time, or because, you guys share meals together. So yeah, there's going to be times when your spouse is in the mood and you're not, and that's okay. It's okay if you guys aren't like on it every single time, or even some of the times. But here's where the problem comes in, is when you see sex as a chore. When you, like, every time you're having sex, you're like, I'm just doing it because my spouse needs that or wants that. And I can tell you that there are a lot of people that subscribe to duty sex, but personally, I think that if you are having duty sex, a regular steady diet of that, first of all, you're shortchanging yourself, and second of all, you're going to build resentment towards your spouse. Because it's going to feel more like this is just something I have to do to keep my spouse happy. And I am not at all going to say that this is a man problem or a woman problem, because I think that we are seeing so many women out there who have lower drive husbands, and they are struggling to get that intimacy from their husbands just as much as many husbands have struggled to get intimacy from their wives. This is not a gender problem, okay? So don't think that. Oh, well, it's just men wanting sex, or it's just women who have really high libidos or whatever. This is a problem that both genders are struggling with, and figuring out sex in marriage is very hard. It is not easy to negotiate this any more than it's easy to negotiate finances or to negotiate morning, evening, night routines. It's hard to negotiate things in marriage, and I'm not really sure why we think sex should just be this really simple thing and doesn't require a lot of communication. I mean, it does. It requires a lot. This is an activity that you and your spouse are doing together, and it is going to require you guys talking about it, making plans, And sometimes I think maybe we have this idea that sex is just supposed to be wonderful and spontaneous and romantic every single time and, knocking our socks off all the time. I think because of the movies. We don't ever see people ever having to plan through a night of sex. They're never talking about sex. They're never saying, I like it when you do this, or I want to have more sex. It's like the second, I don't care what's going on. All right, bombs are going off in the background and people are getting ready to have sex. And I'm like, that is not real. That is not real. So, but if that's all you ever see, if that's what you think about sex, then you're going to be expecting sex to happen even in the midst of crisis. And I've told my husband so many times, I'm like, look, if Armageddon is like genuinely happening, we are not having sex, okay? We're going to get our kids, we're going to get them to safety. We're not going to take the time to have sex, okay? I don't understand why movies always do that. I'm like, everyone is dying and jumping out of buildings, yet we're over here having sex. I don't get it. So I think there's some poor real understanding of romance and sex and marriage and stuff. Oh, JD says, but it's your last chance to have sex. Yes, I guess that's why they do it on the movies, right? I don't know if that's going to be my on my mind if I am concerned about, people coming and killing us, so, or whatever. So I think there's a lot of reasons why sex can become like a chore for people. First of all, I think that some of it is just that poor understanding for the need of sexual intimacy. You don't, because if you have a low libido or something like that, you might not even see the need for sexual intimacy in your marriage because you're thinking to yourself, well, I'm not really getting anything from this and I'm not really in the mood and I'm only doing it for my spouse. That's just untrue. Marriages need sexual intimacy. God created us to need sexual intimacy in our marriages. And when you're not having sex, you are not having that intimacy with your spouse. So some people see it more as a duty or a chore because they don't understand how much it's actually helping them, how it's helping them feel closer to their spouse, how it's helping their spouse to feel loved and closer to them. We should be doing the things that help us to feel closer to our spouse. Another thing I think happens is we are too busy and we get super stressed out. So there's all these things going on and we've got to drive kids everywhere and we've got all these household chores we got to do or whatever. Jobs are stressful. It makes us feel less sexy. It gives us less time to invest in our sex life because we are exhausted by the end of the day. And because our lives are so busy and we're just stressed out, if you are not like raring to go, charged up in the mood, and you're more low libido, you're not going to want to have sex. You're going to think, well, this is just like having to vacuum the house. Well, dang it, I forgot to do that yesterday, so I better do it today because I don't have time to do it again until next week. That's a real problem. When you see spending time in your marriage is all chore, that really does affect the relationship, and it affects your time together having sex. If you come into it with, this is me just having sex with my husband or my wife because they want me to, your spouse is going to they're going to feel that. And it's going to affect their ability to really feel satisfied with your time together because they're going to be rushing through it and being like, oh my gosh, I'm bothering them, so let's hurry up and get this done so that they can go to sleep. So it really, it affects you, it affects them, and it's very, just very damaging to your marriage. Other reasons I think that people find sex to be a chore is if they're not orgasming. Now, I don't know how many men out there are having sex and it doesn't lead to orgasm. I think that there are men out there that happens to, whether it's because of erectile dysfunction or something else is causing them to not be able to orgasm. For women, I know that's a big problem. A lot of women struggle to orgasm. And if you go to have sex and you are the spouse that doesn't ever, and JD says, yes, it happens for men. He's the one that does a lot of surveys, so I know he's got a lot of information on that. I kind of only read about it some here and there. But I'm telling you, if you have sex and your spouse orgasms every time and you hardly ever orgasm, it's going to kind of turn you off to wanting to do that, because it's going to make you think, well, this is just for them, because I didn't get any physical pleasure from this. Now, I'm not saying you can't have physical pleasure without orgasming, but if you've gone ahead and told yourself that I'm not going to get to orgasm and this is just for them, you're not going to get very much physical pleasure out of it. It is not going to feel as good to you, and it's not going to make you want to have it. You won't have that motivation because you don't expect anything great to happen on account of it. So I think that not being able to orgasm and not really feeling sexually satisfied or physically satisfied makes people put it on their chore or on their to-do list. There are a lot of spouses who the partner has finished, they've orgasmed, and now this one who didn't get to orgasm yet is left hanging. And that's really bad in marriage. That's very hard for the person who just couldn't get there. And their spouse, for whatever reason, whether they have felt like, well, this is obviously duty sex, so I need to hurry it up. Okay, so JD says men tend to expect orgasm 100% of the time. Women tend to expect 33% on average. And I definitely think that women will have sex more often without orgasming. And I think that they don't always expect to do it. So I think that they can be more okay with walking away from a sexual experience without orgasming. But if it's been months and you haven't reached that, that's a problem. Or at the very least, some equivalent, where you are feeling very aroused and feeling very physically pleased. Even if you don't go over that tipping point as a woman, it is bad for you mentally. And so sometimes what happens is, like, if the spouse who's the higher drive, who constantly is asking for sex, and the lower drive spouse gives it to them, and then they get to a point where they're like, okay, I think I could definitely orgasm today. Well, the high drive spouse is already done. They're trying to get it over with because they don't want to bother the lower drive spouse. And then the lower drive spouse sees that as them just being selfish. And that, again, it moves it to the chore list. There's so many things that can happen in our sex lives that get us to the point where we are struggling to have that intimacy and making that a priority. Some of it is porn addiction. If you have a porn addiction or your spouse has a porn addiction, it can be very hard to initiate sexual intimacy with your spouse. One, maybe they feel really bad about it. If you have a porn addiction and you are hiding that from your spouse, you feel very guilty. So it's going to keep you from wanting to have sex with your spouse, and it will put it on that chore list. So do sexual past. Whether you maybe you were sexually promiscuous and you're feeling very bad about that, and you are really struggling because you feel like, now that you're married and you're with your spouse and you see how beautiful this is in marriage, but you're like, I squandered that with someone else. Maybe you're feeling guilt from that. People who have been sexually abused, they really struggle with libido, because when you have been abused, during the abuse, if your abuser has done anything to you that causes your body to react in a positive way, I mean, you're going to tell yourself the whole time, this is wrong. I've got to shut this down because this is not okay. And that can transfer into your marriage. That can be very hard. It can be hard if your spouse is touching you in a way that your abuser touched you. It can be a real turnoff. And also, you just kind of have to train your mind to not be sexually aroused by the things that just generally will cause your body to feel good. I mean, there are going to be things that even an abuser might do to you that can feel good. And you feel bad about that. And so that transfers in your sex life. So there are a lot of reasons why people put sex to the chore list, why it feels like a to-do for them rather than something that they love, that they want to do with their spouse. So what do you do if you're in that place? Well, first of all, you kind of need to figure out what's going on. What's keeping me from making sex, what's making sex a to-do for me? Now, I can tell you there was a period of time in my marriage where sex was a to-do for me, and this is why. I had young kids, and they were babies, and they were up a lot at night, and I was very tired, I feel for all of you moms and dads out there that have small babies. It is hard. It is hard to get up all throughout the night. And my two oldest children are a year and a half apart. It was not uncommon to have two of them up during the night at the same time, or one right after the other. So I was pretty exhausted, and it was hard for me to feel like in the mood because we would go to bed kind of late. And going to bed late would mean I had less time to be asleep before my kids started waking up. And so I felt that sex was more of a chore because I needed to, I was feeling like I was constantly trying to beat the clock to get to bed so that I had some amount of time before I was going to be woken up. And so it put it on the to-do list for me. This is just something I've got to check off on my to-do list because I love my spouse. I want to do this with him and for him, but because our time was so limited, I was rushing through. I wasn't being physically pleased every single time because I wanted to do this and get to sleep. So for me, that would be why it made it to the to-do list for a little while. And it's sometimes sex is going to make it to that chore list, but it can't stay that way. Now, I am not at all suggesting don't ever have sex out of duty. What I am saying is that should be a Band-Aid. It should be a quick fix to the healing process of getting to a place where you are more fully enjoying sex and desiring it and wanting to do it. So some of the things you can do to get sex off your chore list is address the issue. Okay, for me, I needed to initiate more. I needed to tell my husband when I was feeling ready to have sex. I needed to mentally make some changes in my mind so that I could be ready to have sex and tell him about it so that we would go to bed earlier. For a long time, I really struggled to initiate, which meant I had to wait on him. I had to wait on him to be ready to go to bed. I had to wait on him to be ready to initiate with me. And I would always be trying to read him to figure out, okay, is he going to initiate? Should I stay in the mood? Should I try to get myself in the mood or what? And that was just dancing around the issue. And when I realized that I had a real problem and I needed to address that, I was like, okay, I have got to make a mental shift here. I am going to initiate. If you're finding it as a to-do list or a chore thing, this is going to sound really weird, all right? But I think you need to schedule sex. And I know that sounds like that would make it be more of a chore or more of a to-do, but I'm serious, it will really help you. Because when you both know to expect that sex is going to happen, it builds anticipation, first of all. So you're both more excited about it. You want to be with your spouse because you've been dreaming about it all day, whatever your scheduling is. So for a long time, I decided we're going to have sex every other day. And whether he initiates or I initiate, we're going to have sex. So that's what I had to do. For myself personally. Now, I don't know what you need to do. I didn't really communicate that to my husband, so I just kind of did that in my own mind. It might help you and your spouse to schedule it so you both know that it's going to happen. With the scheduling, though, don't schedule it a week out, all right? Say, tonight we're going to have sex. Get up in the morning and say, we are going to have sex tonight. What do we got to do in our day to make this happen? As a couple, we're going to work together. So you're both in the mood, you both know what's going to happen, you guys agree from the beginning that both of you guys are going to walk away with orgasm if at all possible. Both of you guys are going to do exactly what you can for the other one so that you can feel physical pleasure. And I'm telling you, this will help your mindset. Another thing you can do is, initiate. If you're the one who has it on your chore or your to-do list, you need to initiate. Because when you initiate, you're going to feel sexier. You're going to feel more in the mood. You're not going to initiate when you're not in the mood, so you're going to take those extra steps to get yourself there. And that's really important. Initiating kind of puts it more into your, more into your hands, and you get to go when you're ready. And versus having your spouse come to you when you're not ready. If you also, another thing that I know that really helped me was to change my mindset about sex and to see it as something that I do with my husband. It's a way that we spend time together. Just like if we were going to be going on a date, or if we were going to have supper together, or if we were going to go to the store together, this was just one more thing that we get to do together that is part of our relationship. And the unique thing about this is that he is the only one that I get to have sex with, and I'm the only one he gets to have sex with. And that made a really big impact on me, especially since Austin and I, both of us, saved ourselves for marriage. We didn't have sex before we got married. And one day I realized to myself that I had spent a lot of years fighting the temptation to have sex with him, only to get married and squander my time. And I really was. I was squandering it. And I thought, this is bad. This is not good. I put aside a lot of desire so that I could spend these years with him being fully, sexual with him and only him, and be fulfilled by him and do this in a way that is pleasing to God, and I'm squandering it. So that made a big difference for me. Those are some of the ways that I took sex off of my to-do list and felt more excited to be with my husband. So I don't know what it's going to take for you, but you can get there. If sex seems like it's a chore for you, then you can make those changes. And also, I really encourage you to talk to your spouse. I know that some people see sex as a chore because they feel that their spouse is being selfish. I hear a lot of people feel or say that they feel their spouse is being selfish within the sexual intimacy. It's because maybe they're orgasming and you're not. And maybe you see that as them being selfish because they're not doing the extra things to get you there. Or maybe they're the ones who are always initiating and they're never initiating at a time that you feel is best. And so you feel like they're being selfish because they're asking for sex when you're not ready. And maybe you're like, well, look, there's a million things that have to get done around here, yet all you want to do is go to the bedroom. So tell them, I need more help. This is what I need you to do to get me to that point. And work together. Some of it's got to be resolved within your own mind, and some of it has to be resolved within your relationship with your spouse. So I encourage you guys to work towards that. If you're finding that sex is a duty thing for you regularly, not just here and there, like, oh, I feel a little sick, but it's been 3 days, so I really want to have sex with my spouse, even if it isn't going to be for me, that's very different than saying every single time we have sex, it's because I have to. Because, oh, I've got to do this one more thing for my spouse. And it will breed resentment. So I really discourage against a steady diet of duty sex. Do what you can to change your attitude and to work through those things with your spouse. Have the conversations. It is going to take years, guys. It will not be solved after one conversation. It will not be solved in 1 month. Most couples don't reach real sexual satisfaction, like on a regular basis, until they've been married for 10, 15 years, maybe even more. It takes a very long time to build that in your marriage. And you're going to go through seasons. Sometimes your sex life is going to be really great, and sometimes it's going to be really not. And that's okay, because we should always be changing and growing and working through those times that are more dry in our marriage. So I encourage you guys with that today. If you want to find out what I've been blogging about, go over to lovehopeadventure.com, and there are plenty of things you can look for over there. You can subscribe to my newsletter list, where I have a spicy newsletter list that has a lot of bedroom games for you and your spouse to play. They are free printables, and there's probably about 8 games probably. And then I have just a general marriage list where you can get free printable conversation starters, which I actually really encourage all couples that are going out on dates to have with them. Austin and I never leave without conversation starters because we want to retreat from our lives into each other, and we can't do that if we're talking about kids and work. So we got to have some other things to talk about, and I love conversation starters for that reason. Thank you guys so much for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow.